If people wanted to see red, yellow Sabo gameplay, where
They
would
can
they be
find
able to find
all of my
you?
matches from the tournament on my YouTube and Twitch, Thirdundo. I stream the whole thing, and I can put out some more gameplay if people want to see. I think this deck is only going to have its heyday for a couple more weeks. I don't really know what it'll look like in OPO7. So if you're interested in playing him or you want to see the gameplay, come check out my channel and definitely give him a try before Sakazuki gets banned, because it's going to look different. Right beyond that, I don't know if he's going to be the same level of power he is today.
What is good, homies? This is Chris from Small Hat Crew, joined today by a very special guest. I don't know. I don't think it's ever been done before, right? I think, are you our first top 32 Sabo?
As far as I know, I think this is the highest top. I think someone got top 64 in a 500 person event. So that was the best that I saw, but this might be the highest one for the leader.
I think so too. So I guess, all right, our very special guest. I'm gonna go ahead and introduce you as Sir Dundo. However, what would I guess if you want that out there, what do the people call you?
So yeah, I go on Sir Dundo by Twitch and YouTube, and but my name is Daniel. You can't call me Daniel. That's totally fine.
Literally, we have a Sabo. We have a red yellow Sabo that went 8-2. 8-2. Yeah. I can't even lie, because like when I heard that there was a Sabo that was like, I think by the time I hit the stream, I think you're like 4-1 or 5-1 at that point. And like, I was like, this is gonna be entertaining. I'm gonna watch it regardless. I was like, I think it's probably gonna be a strong start, and then like it's gonna peter out near the end or something, because that's usually how it goes with these leaders. But I was wrong. You just didn't drop any more games once I was in the stream. So I was like, holy shit. I will give you the stage. Feel free to go ahead and do as you please. Take it away.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So we got red, yellow Sabo. For those that don't know, the way that the effect works is you need a Don under the leader, and then you can put a character that costs 3 or more and has 7,000 or more power to your life, which then lets you give another character that's on the board plus 2,000 until the start of your next turn. So there's a lot of cool interactions you can do with that, and a lot of different ways you can build this leader around that. But the way I did it, first card in the deck that we can go over is 2 of the 1-drop Nami from the very first starter deck that lets you reattach Arrested Dawn. I think everyone can agree that this card is like totally useless against leaders like Moria or Sakazuki. Like, it's just dead the second it hits the board. But it has counter, so it's never totally useless entirely. But against the leaders that have a bit of a slower start and don't have as much removal, like Enel or like Green Uta if you see one, against like Whitebeard, Red Purple Luffy, this can be a huge game changer, because like I said, you need a Don under Sabo. Yeah. You need your leaders to be a specific, or your characters to be a specific power. And so just having that extra Don to play with can make the world of a difference. And so really, really good to have in the deck, because like I said, worst case scenario, you just pitch it for 1k, which is always nice. And if it can stick and you can get value out of it, like, it's never bad to have on the board, especially in an aggressive deck, which this is built to be very, very aggressive.
Why is it that you don't play the Garp and the 3 brothers and all of that?
Yeah, so I'll cover that right away. I've seen like lists like that. I think a lot of the lists that have had some results did that strategy. But like when I thought about the leader and kind of saw how it played and practiced, it just felt like Black Yellow Luffy does that so much better. Like, yes, yeah. You can swing with Ace, put him in life, play out Baby Ace, get Ace back, swing again, now you're leader 7k. Like, that's a sick combo. But it's also a combo that's your entire turn. It requires having both cards in your hand. And once that Baby Ace is off the board, you're not bringing it back with a Moria the way Black Yellow Luffy is.
Yeah.
And so it's just I don't know. I feel like he does it so much better. He can like freely pitch out those cards and then bring them back later with Moria. It's like so low stakes for him, whereas for you, like, you need to hold on to them. And that's going to be costly for you when you're fighting against aggressive decks like Sakazuki and Red Purple Law and Moria. So the next card we have here is the Kuma. The Kuma can KO 2,000 power or less, which is 1k more than Robin, which is one of the reasons it's in here. The other reason is it can be triggered off life, which it didn't really come up yesterday, but like worst case scenario, if you really need 2 swings, like you can do an 8k and a 9k. With your Kuma and your leader, so like it's got some value there, but ultimately like the 2k makes a difference against Red Purple Law, because a lot of them see that you're playing a red yellow leader. They're not thinking you can do a lot of removal. They might play their Gordons and their Wraith Maxes early, and then you can punish that with a Kuma and then establish a wider board now that they've like wasted those resources essentially. So that's partially why I like the Kuma. And then outside of that, obviously, you got your Rebecca's and other like cheap blockers, like if they're running a Cerberus and Moria or something like that, you can get rid of it with the Kuma, which is nice. So next, we're jumping into some 2Ks. Our first is Koala. We got 4 of her. She's really great. I mean, minus 3,000 for 2 Dawn is really, really nice. Paired with the Kuma, that's a 5k blocker you can get rid of. I didn't really come up, but if you're like running into Sanji's, like that's 4 Don, Sanji's gone. It's kind of expensive, but it's basically a jet pistol price, so like that's not too bad.
Yeah.
And yeah, just like really, really nice card. Really good against 8-drop kids. So if you run into like a 4-drop Yamato or a Green Uta, like bringing that kid down to 5k, really nice, but also just a 2k. So a really great card. Super,
like,
yeah.
If to turn Gordon into a 2k, you have to pay 1 extra Don. I would do that every day. That's
yeah, exactly. And only like 3 leaders can use her. Just Bello, Betty, Sabo, and
Sabo.
So it's good to make value of those things when you can. The other amazing 2K is Hiyori. So like I mentioned earlier, a lot of triggers in this deck, you'll see them, but Hiyori lets you kind of optimize that. A lot of cool interactions you can do with this. Like I think the best play I had with Hiyori yesterday was I was playing against the Yamato. I only had 1 life. I took that life and then I put a 0-cost event in there. And then when they went for game a couple turns later, the 0-cost event hit and I just healed 1 and like they just gave up. They were very clearly about to play Hody Jones and like there was like nothing for them to do that turn. Yeah. So the Hiyori is really, really good. There's like cool things you can do where like you can you play with your rush card, swing, do your thing, put the rush card on life, and then actually like use Hiyori to replace the rush card with a trigger and then rush again. Yeah. So a lot of like smart interactions. You just got to be careful because like these 2Ks have playability, which means you want to use them, and then if you use them too much, when they come to crack back at you, you don't have any 2Ks to get out of it. So you do got to be a little bit careful with how you use her. But if you have some smart plays to do, like you can get a lot of value out of her. Next 2 cards is a 2 of Shiraya. He is the only blocker we run in the deck. I think his value is pretty obvious in terms of like Black Yellow Luffy, Whitebeard, you see Whitebeard, Red Purple Luffy. Ultimately, like I think this is probably the card that's least exciting to me in the deck. He's generically a really good card. For what I'm trying to do, it doesn't always come into play. A lot of times I was just pitching him as a 1K. I did get some really good value out of him against the Black Yellow Luffy, but even with him on the board, it didn't like swing the game to my favor because the game went on a little too long and they just had too much counter. But yeah, I think in this slot, like I had a 5-cost Momo before. Like to your point, I don't really have a lot of ways to replenish, so I was thinking like Hiyori, do something Momo, put the Hiyori in life, and then you can actually put the Momo back in life too, and that's like a huge play there. But that's like all of your Don. Momo, you'd have to replay him, so it's like it's a weird interaction. Shiraya is better than Momo because he is counter, so he's not a brick, which is really important in this deck. But if like someone came to me with like, you could cut these 2 cards and put in this other thing, I'd probably listen to them. Like I don't think he really swings any games in your favor as Sabo, but can definitely come in clutch if like things aren't going your way. You just need that 1 blocker to survive that turn.
You mentioned Black Yellow Luffy like having too much counter. So I take it was that one of your 2 losses?
Yeah. So I remember my matchups. I just looked them up before we talked, but I got Sakazuki round 1. It was a win. Round 2 Moria. It was a loss by 1K. I swung with Luffy. And I put 1 Don under leader to put the Luffy back in life. And if I had just swung full 11k with the Luffy and just said, fuck it, I would have won. So that was a misplay on my part. And then round 3 was a Black Yellow Luffy win. Round 4 was a Red Purple Law win. Then the Green Yellow Yamato win. Then another Red Purple Law win. And then we saw RNL. And then round 8 was when I lost to a Black Yellow Luffy. He was playing really, really well because he was using his leader ability and then leaving those 2 life there, knowing that I was probably trying to rush for game with potentially a red Luffy. Yeah. And so he did not give me that opportunity. And he was totally fine bottom decking those resources and not like putting them back from his life.
Yeah, if Black Yellow Luffy was one of the few losses, and that's like the main matchup you run this card for, I'm not surprised. The fact he hit board and you still lost that matchup, I'm not surprised you'd cut this card.
Yeah, exactly. And then we won against Moria and Asaka, and that was it. But yeah, he was a really good Black Yellow Luffy player. Shout out to him. Like I think he played that super well. And honestly, I think a lot of the people I played against yesterday were just really awesome people and players. A lot of cool plays. Next, we got one of the main MVPs. With all the rush cards in the deck are the real MVPs, but this is one of the best ones for sure. We got 4 of the Zoro. The really great thing about Zoro is the flexibility because he's the cheapest rush card you can play. Yeah. So a lot of times, like on your 6 Don turn, maybe you need 1 Don to get Kiku to 7, and then 2 Don gets Sabo to 7, or I guess 5 Don turns a better example, but like you only have 5 Don to play with. Kiku 1 Don under leader, you only have 3 Don left over. Yeah. So like your options are do 2 or bigger swings, put Kiku in life, don't play anything. But if you have Zoro in hand, you can actually do a 7k, a 6k, and then put Zoro on the board and do another 7k when you put Kiku in life. And the other cards just don't facilitate for that. Like you do want to go first a lot with this leader because you'll see later on that getting your opponents to 3 life early is really important. And so Zoro can just facilitate a lot of plays that the other rush cards can't. So he's just like a really nice flexible piece, which is why he's the only rush card that I have 4 of.
Really? Okay, well, I guess we're gonna get into the next one then.
Yeah. The next one here is the Kidding Killer, which is just like the best rush card other than our red Luffy down the road. I mean, this card's great. Like, people are so afraid of it. I mean, just the threat of it. The threat of it gets people so scared. If they're at 2 life, then this is better than Zoro for sure. Because you play it and like your ability's life. You just need to put it down on your leader and you're good. But on the turns when like they're not at 2 life yet, because a lot of people will protect themselves from going to 2 a little too early because of this card. Like, he's bad. He's like a 4 cost 5k ride. Like, it's not what you want. But you get so much more value out of Zoro in those circumstances. So you do want to see this guy in your matches, but like you definitely want to see both of them because it helps. Like, this is your earlier play. You let them do whatever they want with that. Like, maybe you put it back into life a couple times, and then they're like, okay, I'm not going to swing into you. I'm not going to give him back to Zoro, and then you hit him with the Kidding Killer 2 turns later. So they work really, really well together. But at 3, I'm super comfortable with him. I see him almost every game, at least 1, sometimes 2, and that's perfect for what this deck needs.
It's interesting too, because the reason I put so much respect on Kid Killer, you would think it'd be because like Red Purple Law, right? Because that's the deck where that card's being abused the most, but that's not what happened. I was streaming the other day, and I was doing like this thing where I was playing all the bad leaders, trying to get a win with them on Sim, and this card shines in Red Green Luffy.
Oh yeah.
Did you know his effect's not once per turn?
Nope. It's absolutely not.
Oh my god. Like, you swing 7, you restand him, and then you swing 10. It's like, what? But yeah, no, that's why I found new respect for Kid Killer. I mean, he's already good, obviously, but if he could...
If Black wasn't the powerhouse that it was, I feel like Red Green Luffy could really do some work between this card and Cavendish. Like, there's some cool stuff there.
Yeah. Okay.
I love Red Green Luffy. It was my set 1 deck for a little bit back when I didn't really know how to play the game. Special place in my heart. Okay. Next, we're moving on to some of the Revolutionary Army package. So, like, I guess for context, when I was building this deck, there was the Bellow Betty Searcher. Like, I was trying to do more of the Revolutionary Army stuff. And then, like, over time, I took out a lot of, like, the Searcher and, like, some of the other elements. But I kept some of these core cards because the effect is just so good. So, like, as I was saying earlier, I don't have an optimal turn. I'm just trying to make every turn as aggressive as possible.
Right.
And in those games where you don't have like a effective way to rush in the first turn, like maybe I can swing 5k and then 7k with Zoro, but like Zoro's my only rush card. So once they kill that, I may not see another one for a couple turns. That's a little risky. That is much better for me to play this for 4, this Karatsu, get them down to 4k, and then swing 6k with my leader. Like, that's a good turn for me. And then they can try to remove Karatsu if they want. Like, I'm cool with that. Like, he's not, a cornerstone to the deck or anything. If they don't remove him, they're in trouble. Like, that's a mistake. If they do remove him, like, that's resources that I don't really... they spent resources on a card that I don't really care about, because Kid Killer, Zoro, Luffy, like, those are the cards I care about.
Yeah.
So it's like a win-win for me to play him, and it's like a really nice turn. And yeah, worked really well against Black Yellow Luffy, against, again, 8 drop kit, and I mean, any leader would not be happy to have a -1000 for the whole turn. So it's just like a good card to see.
The card is... I remember when that card like first got revealed, I was like, oh my, this card's gonna get banned.
Yeah, it seems really, really oppressive. But the requirements are a little high, especially when you really need to allocate the Dawn correctly to use your leader ability the best way. And then also, like, if you put the Dawn under him first, which you want to do because you want to get them to -4000 first, then he's probably the one you're going to put back in your life. And like, you can't play him from trigger. Then you got to spend 4 to play him again. So really, you're just like getting a 1k back, which isn't always great. So yeah, I think a lot of the decision points on this deck are less about what card do I play this turn, and like more about how big do I swing this turn, what am I putting in life, and then like when am I going to counter out and when am I going to take the life, more so than some other decks might be thinking about.
Oh, that makes sense.
But yeah, super cool card, really like it. Definitely is like a really great card to see when you don't see a lot of the fast rush cards. And now we're starting to get into some of the triggers. So the first trigger is Lindbergh. When he's 7,000 power or more, he can KO something 3,000 power or less. He's one of the triggers you got to trash card for, so you got to be careful when you use him. This deck has a lot of bricks. Again, not a lot of ways to draw cards, so discarding too much from your hand is risky, especially with how aggressive like Red Purple Law is. And like Red Purple Laws in some games took me from 4 to 0, just because like I could have countered out a little bit, gone down to like 1 or 2 cards, but like they can just get 5, 6 attacks on you in 1 turn. So you got to be careful with when you trigger these. But in the right time, this is great. Like you're killing Rebecca easy. You're killing brand news and like those other kind of pesky cards that they poke you with. If you use Koala, you're killing something bigger. So you can get a lot of value out of this if it sticks to the board. And if it just triggers and you're swinging 7k with it, just swing 7k, like that's really cool. So it's just, this is the next one, Cracker. This is in here for one matchup specifically. It's Moria. So I have a couple of cards that are triggered when your opponent's at 3 or less life. And it feels really bad against Moria when you're taking like your first 2 life and you see those cards and you can't trigger them because they're a 5 life leader. And so Cracker, if you see Cracker in your top life against Moria, it's really, really nice. If you put him in your top life with Hiyori, it's really, really nice. But otherwise, like, it doesn't have to be Cracker. It can be, I think if you were going to swap this card out, like, make sure it's a card that has counter and has a trigger, because I think the trigger and the counter ratio is really important in this deck. But you could put something else in there. Like, I think Sanji is really cool in the slot. There's some cool interactions you can do where, swing with Kid Killer, swing with Leader, play Sanji, put Kid Killer in life. Sanji is now 7k blocker for the next turn. And, you can use him to block 5k or 6k swings that your opponent does. So a lot of cool stuff you can do there if you took this card out. But otherwise, like, he's a good attacker. He's scary. People will, like, over counter to not be double attacked. So there's a lot of mind games you can play with him.
He is 1k at the end of the day.
Exactly. Everything's like 1k at the end of the day. That's like the theme. Like, other than your rush cards, you can just kind of get stuff out. And that's really important so that you don't go down too fast. This deck loses if you go down in life too fast. These are the cards that like really change the tide of the game. Play for free, off life, super great. Also, this effect's really nice against like Black Yellow Luffy. Like, they buff themselves to 9, but their Sabo still 6. Like, rather than going over, you can just directly attack into the Sabo because they're going to block anyways. A lot of like random things you can do there, but ultimately, like, the best thing is just I can play the soft life for free. Don't need to discard anything, and then I can put it back on my life. And now they're just staring at it, and they're thinking. And I guess I'll put the Kikus out there because these are basically the same card. This is just like 8 of the same card in my mind.
No, I agree.
And yeah, so they're just like staring at it, and they're like, okay, if I hit you, you get a body. And then that's like a fun mind game where you're thinking, okay, I'm playing against Sakazuki, I'm playing against Red Purple Law. I know the second I trigger this card, they're going to remove it some way. How much do I counter out? And like, how much do I make them use, or how many attacks do I make them use before I'll play this card? And like sometimes I'll just like pick the Neko back up and just take the 1k counter, and maybe I'll play him flat. So yeah, there's like a lot of decision making that goes into that because the second you play it, they're going to remove it. So you gotta be careful with that.
God.
And then Kiku's obviously amazing. The effect is just crazy.
It's funny too, because like what you were saying just now was like hyping her up, and as I was staring at her though, I was just like, I feel like she's probably discard fodder all the time for the other triggers.
Yep. Yeah, like in my hand, it's a really good card. Like sometimes I did this a couple times in the tournament. Like I'll have an attacker here, like maybe it's a Karasu, maybe it's like a Zoro or whatever, and I'll actually just play Kiku, put a Dawn under her, even though she can't attack, and then put her in life, and then buff this for 2. Because that's essentially like deducting, that's like a 5-cost play that costs 3 because I'm giving 2k power, and that lasts until the next turn. So that's some extra value there. And then obviously the Kiku gets played for free in the next turn. So there's a lot of cool interactions you can do with that card specifically. And it's just like, it feels good because it's like getting a brick out of your hand. You're not really wasting any resources. So it's good in that sense. Next, we got the 4 Satoris. So we're 12 2Ks total. This same thing kind of as like Cracker, but he's our 2K. So you gotta think extra hard about when you play him. I think one big misplay I had, thankfully, I don't think he called through the game. I can't remember which match it was in, but I saw the Satori and I had my counter power was shit. I had like 4 rush cards, like maybe 1k. And I was like, oh, thank God. But I feel bad, but I have to pick him up. And then I really thought about it, and I was like, oh, at that time that I picked him up, the leader had no more Dawn left, so they couldn't remove him. I could have very easily swung and just put him back on life, and then picked up the 2k the next turn. And so like that was a misplay I made, but like that's the kind of decision making that I think really makes this deck shine. Figuring out like when to optimize those triggers and like how to like play around recycling those resources with the leader ability because you don't have any other way to recycle them.
I don't remember if it was Satori or not, but I do know. I think there was one game I was watching where I think Where I remember I thought it was looking kind of grim, and they hit you and a body came out of life, and then they hit you and another body came out of life, and you just killed them on the ground.
It was an L, and I'll be the first to say that that match was like so lucky for me that happened, because I would say the two worst matchups for the deck are Moria and Enel. Moria because he's a 5F leader, Enel because he's annoying, and it's like really hard to be an aggro deck against Enel. I think that's why you see Zoro struggle so much. It's like it's not a good time unless you're, I guess, Purple Luffy, who had his moment against OPO5 Enel, but like he's gotten so much better since then. So yeah, like Enel's tough.
I do remember from the stream too. Didn't you also say I think Uta is also another one.
Uta's surprising because like sometimes it depends how people play, but like a lot of Utas will just take all of their life and then play 8-drop Kid and then play like 3 blockers around 8-drop Kid, and you have the Luffy, but at the end of the day, Luffy's only 11k into an 8k. So you can struggle. Like I can go back and forth with them for a couple of turns, but a lot of times if that goes on too long, they just win. So Uta can be really annoying. And with Enel, like my strategy there is typically like play a lot of rush cards and try to get them to 1 or 0 life once they hit 7 Dawn turn, so that they're already thinking about losing. And sometimes you just kind of get unlucky because they have the Gadatsus in hand, they have reject or like other things that can remove your board, and then you just don't have enough pressure to make them feel scared by like the time they can play Yamato. And yeah, the Enels that are worse are the ones that never turn their leader sideways and just leave you at 4 life the whole game, because all of your characters are 4 life, so you'll never get a board. They'll play 4 Yamato and you'll just lose. It's crazy. Yeah, it's a really tough matchup. I think if you see a lot of Enels, I would not recommend running this deck at a local. It's a really, really tough matchup. It's winnable. I've definitely won it, but you got to be super aggressive, and like that's where the triggers come in. That's why I'm like so specific about the trigger ratios, because you want to. Those bodies off life are what helps you win against Enel. Otherwise, it's really, really hard to get there.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it for a local, only for an online regional.
I roll the dice. I don't want other people to spend their money on a ticket and be upset at me. This is the MVP. For real.
Yes.
You might be surprised that he's only at 3, but like I saw him every game. There was one game against the Red Purple Law where I was like, I really wish I had Luffy. I drew the next card, Luffy. Like that was the only time I got lucky with him. Every other time he was always in my hand, or like I drew him pretty early. Sometimes I saw too, like the centerpiece of the deck. Like I think I have to go back and watch, but I'm pretty sure like every game, if not almost every game, I won with the Luffy swing.
Yeah, I noticed that. I know. I thought, okay, I wasn't sure if I missed one or not, but because I know every single time I saw you close a game out, it was the Luffy. So, and I remember like when you, at the end of the stream where you were kind of talking about the deck, and you said there was only 3, I was like, he's the best card in the deck? Clearly. Made it seem crazy to me.
The only reason he's not at 4 is because he's a brick, and it takes a while for him to be online. Like if you're waiting to play the Luffy and you're not really able to play other things in the meantime, they're not going to be in a position where the Luffy's going to win you the game. Like you need the Zoros and the Kid Killers to get them to 0 life and also get them to waste cards in hand. Yeah, that's like a big part. Because like a lot of times, like they're aware that you have a Luffy, so they'll just keep a big hand and they'll just be able to counter out of 11k, and then you lose on crackback. So he's so good. Like he closes the game. But he doesn't get you to a point where you can close the game. The other cards get you there.
That makes sense.
But such a great card. Like, if they banned that card one day, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, it's absolutely the best rush card in the entire game. And then lastly, just because we have 14 bricks, I believe, the 0-cost event, rounds you out a little bit.
Makes sense.
If it's in your last life, congratulations, go buy a lottery ticket. If you can put it in your last life, that's a really good play. But otherwise, just kind of helps you out in those situations where you have not enough counter and you need just a little bit more.
It's funny,
and that's the whole deck.
Because like this card has recently become like the new beige. Like I remember in OPO5 when beige would trigger out a life at the end, I get like really, really angry. But now it's this card because it's like beige. It's like there's 4 copies.
1 for 1.
Yeah, it's like now beige there's like 4 copies in the deck usually because he's a 2K. Usually this card isn't ran at more than 2, so it's like there's just less copies of it, and then the odds of it being the last life, like whenever that happens, it's so infuriating. It's so infuriating.
Yeah. And Nell happens to see it like all the time. I think actually Nell I played against saw that too. So I got super lucky that match, but he also had great triggers as well. So I'm not too upset about it. But yeah, like this card's great. It was not my last life at any point except the one time I put it there with Fury. But if you see it in your last life and it makes a difference, like it's yeah, you really feel lucky that day. Otherwise, like it's just great. Like you got so many bricks in hand, you have 3k counter out of them. Like really, really good card to round it out.
So for aspiring Sabo players, aspiring yellow-red Sabo players specifically, they're the Sabo 101. Okay, so what matchups do you prefer to take first? What matchups do you prefer to take second?
I think any 4-life leader you want to go first besides Black Yellow Luffy. But I guess with him, like you want to keep a card out of his hand. Maybe you want the extra Dawn to like essentially build out a bigger board by the time like you really need to start swinging. But for like Sakazuki, Red Purple Law, you definitely want to go first. Like get them to 3-life right away. Yeah. Because the biggest thing is you don't want them to hit you, and then your first life is a Kiku, and then you can't play it. Like that just feels really bad because that Kiku off that first life would just set the whole tone of the game for you.
That makes sense.
So if you watch a lot of my matches, like I would go first, and then my first move I just swing 8k, and like that's it.
I did see that.
That's it. Take the first life, and then like we're good. Like that's when the game really starts. Sometimes I would just swing 8k, and then I would swing like another 9k right after that. Like, yeah, that's fine. I would put like maybe swing 8 again and like put something in life with Fury, because like the 5 Dawn turn can be a little awkward with like the rush characters.
So that kind of like naturally just pivots into my next question then, because like there's one that I'm not too certain on, because so like earlier we were talking about how, for example, like you know, like you don't like you like to hold on to 2Ks to some extent and whatnot, because like there isn't really a way to recur them outside of leader ability, which is even honestly bad, but still. But then on the opposite side of things, like Kiku Nojo being first life, obviously not being good. So how aggressively do you take life when you play?
Yeah, it's a great question. It honestly depends on like how much counter I drew. I personally try to overget. Like I know a lot of people might take that first life. There are times where I think I might not even, especially if they're not at 3 life. If you're able to counter out with a 1k and you don't need that 1k, like that's not in your game plan for the next 2-3 turns, I'm tempted to just do it in most cases, because the way you lose is like you go down to 2 life and then you realize that their board is like 5 deep and you have like 1, maybe 0 characters because you're just stacking things on life, and that's how you play. At the end of the day, like Sabo's just not as strong a leader as Sakazuki or Red Purple Law or Moria. Like we can't turn out bodies that the way those characters or those leaders do, and so you got to play aggressive and beat them before like they get their win con. And so you can't just like let yourself get down to like 1-2 life, because they're gonna swing at you 5 times and no amount of counter is gonna get you out of that.
Yeah, because I know when I was watching yesterday, I think it was yesterday. I've already forgotten at this point, but because I think I saw like at least 2 different times where I saw you counter out the first swing. I was like, that's interesting. I wonder if that's like normal. And I figured it's probably because like Kiku Nojo or something like that. So I guess that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
a lot of sense.
Yeah, exactly. Like sometimes I'll counter out if they're gonna give me a free one, I'll counter out, because like that, you know, if there's no trigger there, I just basically help them out, because I got no value off that, and now I'm like a little bit closer to losing. And if it comes down to it and they realize that they're going to lose next turn, I'm at like 1 less life, and they can just kind of go for it a little bit easier. So if they're going to give me a 5k swing, I'll counter out most times. And if I know what's there and I put it there, like sometimes I'll keep countering out too, just because like now's not the time to play it. I'll wait a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I've heard some Sabo discourse. It's funny too, because like it started, I heard it today actually, quite literally today, and it all started from you making going 8-2 yesterday. But I was watching a tournament today, and there was a Sabo player in it, and then some discussion started happening. So I remember like when I saw the Sabo, I think it was like around 3 or 4 or something. I saw there was a Sabo. I was like, is this Redondo? And it wasn't you, obviously. But I remember like apparently people are saying that they believe Sabo, a reason to play Sabo is because he beats the Red Purple Law matchup. That sounds crazy to me, but like, what are your thoughts? You're the Sabo at this point.
I 100% agree with that. Like, it's actually a really good matchup. He's a 4-life leader. His deck is kind of bricky. He runs a lot, like 8 Gordons or the 4 Gordons 4 race maxes. He runs with Kids Killers. Like, there's a lot the Eins. There's a lot of dead cards in his deck, and you're just running like a bunch of rush cards. And so that's a really, really nice matchup for me. It's very losable for the same reason that a lot of these matchups are losable. It's just like Sabo's objectively not as strong of a leader in every game compared to those other guys. Like, you can't put out 3 bodies a turn the way they can. And like you sometimes you'll just lose to someone for getting 5k, 7k, 5, 6 times, 7 times with red purple law because he could just keep turning out rush cards. So it's very losable, but it's surprisingly winnable. I would say, like, you would think it might be hard, but you're never really playing anything on the board and keeping it there. Like a lot of the times, if you watch my matches with him, I play a rush card, I swing big with my rush card, I swing big with my leader, and then I put the rush card back there. And then I just kind of like slowly counter out of things. Maybe I'll take it back in hand that turn. Maybe I'll leave it there. Because I think the red-purple laws that get a little overwhelmed are like, okay, I'm going down in life too fast. I'm not going to attack. I don't want to give him that Zoro back. I'll just like play a queen and like build up some blockers, get some more cards in hand, and then like go aggressive again next turn. And I'm fine with that. Like, I'll keep that life there. I'll keep my counter in hand, and then I'll just play a different rush card the next turn and just do it again. Now I'm up 2 life, and you just countered out again with like another 4 cards. So it's a really good matchup. I think that and Sakazuki are surprisingly good matchups for the deck.
It's real. Okay, that's what I was gonna ask you, because I was gonna say, like, for example, because a lot of people are saying that they think that Sabo might be a sleeper now. A lot of people think that maybe he's just been slept on, not explored enough and stuff like that. And I know kind of like how the meta we're gonna come up into, it's gonna be OPO7, where like for like a lot of the time, Perona, for example, didn't really do anything, and then people realized that she played favorably into red purple also. All of a sudden she started to take off. Yeah, so I guess it's Lost Sokka. What do you think are the reasons to play Sabo over another leader?
I think if you're expecting a lot of 4-life leaders, Sabo really takes advantage of the kind of control mentality that's kind of taken over the meta right now. You got a lot of Sakazukis, a lot of Morias. Everyone's like fighting for board control. Who can turn out the most Morias into Luchis, into like all this stuff. And Sabo just cuts through all of that, and he's like, I'm just going to swing at you 2-3 times, big swings. I'm going to heal 1 and make you discard as much as you want from your hand, or take as much life as you want, and then like we're just going to settle this in a couple turns. Like, one of us is going to take it. So he really does kind of cut through all of that and takes people by surprise. Whether or not he's a sleeper, like, I don't know. I think if people really like start building one list out of Sabo, it'll be a little easier to play around him. It's kind of like, if you never knew how Zoro played, he would just steamroll you. And I think that a lot of that happened yesterday, where people didn't expect me to play so aggressively and didn't expect as many rush cards as I had. And a lot of people were like audibly like, oh man, I'm at 1 life. I didn't even know I'd go down this fast. And so, next time I think they might play a little differently, and then that might change how I have to play. And I don't know that, I'd be able to get the same results against the same players. But I do think, like, in general, a lot of very good leaders are underexplored in One Piece, because we get like the best decks from Japan. Like, maybe there's like a small refinement period, and then people just like keep playing those until the next best decks come out. And a lot of these like other leaders, like the top players, are not really spending a lot of time on them.
Yeah, they're not really exploring Blurple Crocodile the way they should be. So
I'm saying,
unfortunately,
I think he's a sleeper. He's a sleeper. I think.
I think so. I've been saying this since like OPO2 at this point. So
I was messing around with him before, because I didn't know what I was going to play. I practiced with Sabo for like a week. I didn't really know what I was going to play, but I was playing around with Purple Croc, because the EBO1 Mr. 1. Pretty cool. He's like, draw 2 trash 1, and then plus 1,000 for every 2 blue events or 2 events in your trash. And so like he's like a 5 cost 8k at some points that you draw 2 trash 1.
Yeah.
Pretty cool card. I was like, But yeah, the Blurple Croc was not working as well as Sabo, so we went with Sabo.
I'm telling you, bro. OPO7 Blurple Croc, he's coming.
I think so.
He's right around the corner.
I have one more event at the end of the month, and that's going to be like after the Sokka ban. So I'm probably not going to play Sabo, because I do think that's one of the better matchups. I don't know what I'm going to play. Maybe it's Purple Croc, but gotta figure that one out.
Are there any changes? I guess because like the list obviously performed very well for you, but is there anything that you would change in retrospect?
Yeah, like I love the Nami, the 1-drop Nami, and I think the Shiraya like had some moments, but I might change this around. I don't know to what though. Throughout my testing and even throughout the tournament, it did feel like the deck was like 2 to 4 cards off from perfect. But I think ratios wise, in terms of like the number of triggers I have, the number of 1Ks I have, the number of bricks I have, like that feels really good to me. So I would not swap them out for like another card that was bricky. But in general, like, yeah, I do think there's like some onesie twosies that I might change around. I just don't know what the right answer is because there isn't like a huge support package around Sabo. You really just got to choose the best of red and yellow and see what might work for the deck itself. I know like a lot of people were saying like Amaru might be a good tech, and like I agree with that. It's just another dead card in hand, and the trigger feels kind of bad. Like crashing 2 versus like crashing 1 for the 0 cost event. It's like if I draw Amaru on like my 3rd life, I'm not going to trash 2 that early in the game, and then I'm just have a dead card in hand that may or may not come up. I don't know. It's a little tricky.
I also feel like people, I feel like a lot of people have they struggle to picture cards in specific scenarios. Cause like, for example, when I was messing around with like Kinemon yesterday, when I was doing my running the gauntlet with bad leaders, a lot of people are like saying, play Ryuma. And I was like, Ryuma's good in Perona because she can tap things with leader ability and Black can lure things into Ryuma range. It's like, Ryuma's amazing in this one specific scenario, but like, I don't think a card like Amaru would even be as great in a leader like Sabo, because like that discard 2 trigger, just from like watching your games, like the hand that would destroy your. I think you would just lose the game.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I think if you discarded 2 cards, I think that would just be the end of the game. Like,
yeah,
there's no
version
shot.
of Sabo only works if your opponent is scared. If they think that they need to like block her up and like get some 2Ks in hand to survive the game, then you're okay. If they're like, I don't care what you're doing, I'm just gonna race you, you're probably gonna lose because you're only putting out a couple swings and they're putting out so many more. And then the second you're like, okay, I'm gonna build up a board so I can actually like do a lot of swings, they're just gonna be like, okay, I'll remove everything. And then you lose. So you really gotta make them scared. And so you need cards that like support that aggression. And Amaru is like, yeah, it's plus 3,000 for 2 Dawn. That's nice. But like you said, discarding 2 cards for Sabo can just like kill your hand, and then they know your hand is dead, and then they're not really scared of you anymore because they can get you down to 0 life real quick. But I was also messing around with Kinemon. We're having like very parallel thoughts here. I think some of the EBO1 cards were super cool. The go first, play that EBO1 Hiyori for 3 instead of 4, and then swap that out for a 5 cost.
Yeah,
that's the sickest combo. It feels really cool.
I was like, they're not ready. They're not ready for the immediate Yamato on 3
Yeah,
Dawn.
they're not. I've even played the vanilla, the Yamasan 5 cost 7K. Like,
oh yeah, the boar. Yup. No, So I guess with you being the Sabo player, I think I've asked all the questions that I can immediately think of. Is there anything that you think is worth mentioning or the people should know that I have neglected to think of?
I think I'll just say like Sabo feels like a little bit different than some of the other decks I've played. Like my turns felt very straightforward. I wasn't thinking a lot. I was just like, you know what? I'm going to swing 7 AK. Like that's probably the best turn I could do. I'm going to put the Zoro back in life. Like that's probably it. Where I was thinking was like, okay, how many cards can I counter out before I have to take this life? If this is a trigger, like when do I trigger it? Like those were the decisions that really made or broke the game for me. Like for example, one of the matches I lost was Black Yellow Luffy. I had put a Neko in here. And at this point in the game, like they were stacked. They had 2 Morias, they had the Luffy, they had an Ace, like their whole board was full. I was looking down like 5 9K swings. I had like 4 life, but they could have like reasonably went for game. And so I got a little scared. I saw the Luffy, I saw the attacks coming. I took the Neko and I didn't trigger it. I took the 1K in hand because I thought I might need it. And ultimately, they had 1 card in hand and they had 2 kind of lights face up, so they were going to get bottom decked. And they had 1 blocker, and I had 3 attacks plus the Rush Luffy, but that 1 card was a 2K. They were a 9K leader. Like, just the math did not work out. Having that Neko would have won me the game, because I ultimately didn't need that counter based on how they attacked. And it would have just, like, changed everything for me. So, like, that, like, small micro decision was the difference between a win or a loss. And I think that's where a lot of, like, the Sabo playstyle matters most. Less about, you know, Saka's thinking about, do I do 2s on this turn? Do I do Borsalino? What do I trash? Sabo's just thinking about, like, okay, what am I putting in life and when am I taking life and how much can I afford to counter, because I know that a lot of this is going to be dead cards that don't have any counter power in them. And yeah, I think that's like, if you're comfortable with that playstyle and you like going fast and you like hitting hard every turn, I think you'd really like this deck.
Do you think Sabo has any like auto win
No,
matchups?
no, I don't think so. I think that's like, yeah, being a 4 life leader, I think is taxing. Like you really got to have like an OP ability to feel like you can auto win something as a 4-life leader, and I don't think he has it. I think the best matchups are definitely Red Purple Law and Sakazuki. I think Moria is definitely the worst. I would say White, if any, the closest thing to an auto win is maybe like Whitebeard or Red Purple Luffy, just because they're super low life and you could be healing every turn, so it's a little bit easier for you to survive those matchups. I would say maybe Whitebeard more to Red Purple Luffy, but definitely not auto win, but good match because he's going down every turn, you're healing once every turn. It works out pretty well. It might be hard for him to get there, and you're just kind of like poking at him a little bit with your rush cards. So I think that's probably the easiest one. But yeah, being 4-life, like anyone can really eat through you if they can establish a good enough board presence. So you really got to be diligent if you play in a deck like this, especially for a 10-round tournament. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Battle of attrition. Now I guess I will have one final question because that has me curious. Because the reason I asked that matchup is because I feel like on paper, in my head, now you're a 4-life leader, so it's gonna sound crazy, but I feel like you would play very, very, very well into Yamato, but also with you being 4-life, I can see you're just erasing
that's another
it.
one where it's like, it's kind of like who saw the better triggers. Because if I'm swinging into Yamato and their first trigger is Onami, like that's my attacker, I can't even put him back into life. That's like huge. Like if they're getting Kiku's off life, it's like I could probably counter out of one, not the other. And then also your hand size matters, or your hand counter power matters a lot there, because if your opening hand just doesn't have anything, you're in big trouble. Yamato's a little scary, I would say, just because of like the math, like the double attacks and then the Hody Jones. It can get there. They can get there really, really quickly.
No, that makes sense.
But it's definitely not like the worst matchup by any means. Just kind of a scary one.
I said last question was going to be the last question, but I actually lied. So, last question. If people wanted to see Red Yellow Sabo gameplay, where would they be able to find
all of my matches from the tournament on my YouTube and Twitch, Thirdundo. I stream the whole thing, and I can put out some more gameplay if people want to see. I think this deck is only going to have its heyday for a couple more weeks. I don't really know what it'll look like in OPO7, so if you're interested in playing him or you want to see the gameplay, come check out my channel and definitely give him a try before Sakazuki gets banned, because it's going to look different. Right beyond that, I don't know if he's going to be the same level of power he is today.
With that being said, before I close this one out, do you have any final closing thoughts or anything?
No, thank you for having me.
Shout out to anything like that?
Shout out to, I think, Eggman, because I think without all the data on his site, I would never even be playing this game competitively. Like, if someone's watching this and you guys don't know who Eggman is, like, definitely go check out his stuff. Like, I don't know how...
shot they found my channel.
It's like the go-to One Piece, like single-handedly has been like growing this game and supplying us with a lot of great data. And I don't think I'd be able to like think of new decks to try if I didn't even know like what was winning in other places. So yeah, shout out to him for sure.
That makes sense. Again, not even again, because I guess this is the first time I'm saying it, but thank you for coming on the channel. Genuinely do appreciate it. Glad to have a Red Yellow, because it's like the decks I bring on, like I brought on like the first top 32 Zephyr, the Arlong, there's getting the winner, but I'm so much more intrigued by the stuff like this. Like if I wouldn't watch it,
I think like a lot of like really great players, just there's a lot of incentive to play the very best deck, because a lot of money, a lot of prize cards, but I think a lot of really great players could push the game forward and push a lot of decks forward if they just try something a little bit better. So I'm trying it. I'm not as good as a lot of people. I think I do well sometimes, but I don't think I'm a serial Luffy guy. I haven't won any, but I'm trying to get better every day. And I got a top 16 with Ace in OPO5. I got my top 32 with Sabo yesterday, and so now I just got to get something with Luffy. I got all three brothers. I think I'm going to go for Red Luffy over Black Yellow, though. I love Red Luffy. Still slept.
What about Red Purple?
Or Red Purple Luffy. Might be a little too meta for me though.
Luffy's gas. Oh no, you're right. He's
too good. I gotta really suffer to deserve it.
You gotta put on the training weights.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, with that being said, then until next time, we'll see you guys.